Maybe your company is exploring lower carbon fuel solutions and has been using biodiesel in your fleet. But what about renewable diesel? Welcome, everyone, to another webcast from Chevron. I'm Julie Haverly, head of integrated go-to-market at Chevron, and I will be hosting this webcast today discussing renewable diesel and some of the benefits that this biomass-based fuel has to offer. As Chevron continues to provide lower carbon fuel solutions to our customers, one fuel option that we have available is renewable diesel. I'd like to introduce one of Chevron's very own experts, Dave Slade, to talk about what makes renewable diesel different than biodiesel, locations in the US where renewable diesel is used, and also provide some insights for us on the benefits of this fuel type. So, Dave, could you start with a quick introduction for us before we dig in?
Great to be here with you today, Julie. My name is Dave Slade. I'm Chief Technologist for Chevron Renewable Energy Group, and I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about renewable diesel and other bio-based diesels.
Well, let's start with the most basic question. What is renewable diesel exactly?
Yep, that is a very basic and important question. So most folks are aware of biodiesel by now, and renewable diesel is made from the same renewable resources as biodiesel, but it uses a different production process. So what we end up with is a renewable lower carbon fuel like biodiesel, but it is a hydrocarbon fuel, which makes it more like petroleum diesel, and therefore it conforms to the ASTM D975 specification for petroleum diesel instead of the ASTM D6751 specification for biodiesel.
So many people want to know when they're thinking about biofuels in their fleets is how it's going to help or hurt engine performance. So what does renewable diesel do to help with engine performance?
Renewable diesel has a big advantage over petroleum diesel in that it is a paraffinic fuel, which means it burns really cleanly and has really high cetane. It also has very low sulfur. So it has virtually no sulfur, less than 2 or 3 ppm sulfur, which is up to 85% less than ultra low sulfur diesel. And because it burns very cleanly as a paraffinic fuel, it has some advantages for emissions in addition to its lower carbon advantages by being a renewable fuel. One of the ways that we at Renewable Energy Group and Chevron have been taking advantage of renewable diesel's benefits is by blending it with biodiesel, because the two are fairly complementary. So blending the two fuels can capture the best of both worlds. You get excellent cetane, great emissions reduction. The biodiesel provides excellent unmatched lubricity. The carbon emissions, Lifecycle carbon emissions, are low from both fuels. And the blending can actually give some better cold weather properties than either fuel has by itself. So we consider those blends of biodiesel and renewable diesel to be drop-in fuels that work great in engines and don't need any additional considerations other than what you normally have for your traditional diesel fuel. The cetane, just to give an example, when we talk about renewable diesel having a very high cetane, it's usually above 65, which is compared to the federal low limit of 40. So both biodiesel and renewable diesel have big cetane benefits compared to petroleum fuel.
So that sounds like good news for folks who are thinking about implementing renewable diesel into their fleets. Where can you find renewable diesel? Where's renewable diesel used in the U.S.?
Yeah, that's also a really important question. Renewable diesel is largely produced in the middle of the country and more and more on the West Coast. But because California has had a low carbon fuel standard, which is commonly referred to as the LCFS, that went into effect back in 2011, it adds a lot of value to renewable fuels in the state of California. And that extra value has been significant enough to cause almost all of the renewable diesel that's been used in the US historically to be used in California. Similar programs in Oregon and Washington are now pulling fuel into those states. So basically, renewable diesel is available today on the West Coast, which doesn't mean it couldn't be sold in the rest of the country. It's just the value in California is so much better that it becomes a fairly expensive proposition for people in other states today. We'll see if that changes in the future.
That makes a lot of sense. As we continue to see more renewable diesel being produced, it will certainly change the dynamic too in terms of where all we start to see renewable diesel being used.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We hear about biodiesel, renewable diesel. What's the difference? What's the difference between these two fuel
That
products?
is yet another really important question. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we make them from the same feedstocks. So those feedstocks are oils and fats. So think vegetable oils, animal fats, waste oils like used cooking oil. And we convert those fats and oils into methyl esters when we make biodiesel. So we react those fatty acids with methanol. When we make renewable diesel, we react them with hydrogen. in a hydrotreating process, and that produces hydrocarbons. So that's why the fuels can be very different, even though they're made from the same raw materials. One quick note on production process: the biodiesel process is a fairly straightforward, simple process and has a very low carbon intensity associated with manufacturing. Renewable diesel, because we're converting those biomolecules into hydrocarbons, does have a little bit higher carbon intensity, a little more involved process. So it's a little bit more challenging technically to produce renewable diesel than biodiesel.
Thank you for explaining that, Dave. We get that question a lot, and so hopefully our listeners learned something new about biodiesel and renewable diesel. So, what are some of the benefits of renewable diesel?
Yeah, we've mentioned earlier that renewable diesel cetane is really high, and that's a great thing that engine manufacturers love. That these clean burning fuels as well. Renewable diesel also has very low particulate matter emissions and very low NOx emissions. So there's some good emissions benefits to renewable diesel. The other big advantage to renewable diesel over biodiesel is that the cloud point can be controlled by the manufacturer. Now, I don't want people to believe that that means that all renewable diesel is low in cloud point, but it is at least possible to produce and adjust the cloud point of renewable diesel. So I think in the future, we'll see a little bit more lower cloud point renewable diesel coming on for countries like Canada and northern states in the US or the northern countries in Europe. Typically, though, our renewable diesel has the same cloud point as the winter pipeline specification for petroleum diesel. So we are making it at a lower cloud point than most of the biodiesel that's out there. Another important benefit for renewable diesel and biodiesel is that these fuels play very well together. So we can blend renewable diesel with biodiesel, we can blend renewable diesel with petroleum diesel. There really aren't any blending limits when you consider implementing renewable diesel into your fuel uses.
Thank you for that, Dave. It's a lot of really great information about renewable diesel. I really appreciate you sharing the benefits and the benefits that renewable diesel includes and how it can reduce our engine emissions and provide better engine performance, and also its blendability with biodiesel at any level. For those of you listening, if your company is interested in using renewable diesel, we're going to post a link right here for you to click on and see if you want to check out any of Chevron's cardlock or retail locations where you can get renewable diesel today. Please stay tuned for another in our upcoming webcast series.